Hi guys, it's Kat Kabira. And something I've been wanting to talk about for a while is, I'm curious, what resonates for you, what you feel. I feel like the spell that we're breaking right now, among many, many spells, is the disproportionate value that we place upon, I'm speaking to women specifically, though there are, of course, it applies to everyone, to our bodies. And I noticed still, despite all of the embodiment practices, therapy, eating disorder therapy, I've been doing intensive work with myself since 1997, not earlier. That still there will just be days where I feel fat. And I'm smart enough to know that there's some other feeling that's underneath. But it reminds me of like way back when I was less aware of these patterns. How sometimes I would have these intense feelings in my body that I would quickly compute as there's something wrong with me and there's something wrong with my body, where I would feel so ugly that I couldn't leave the house. Like there was this deep layer of shame. And because I wasn't conscious of it, it would just like this feeling would engulf me, and where I would just cry looking in the mirror. And of course, like, I was never able to see myself, the way I am. Like I would look with these really like mean, scrutinizing eyes, with a facial expression that probably most people don't even see on me. And of course, just standing there, not even being in motion. And I was thinking today about how the first time I ever dropped acid, I was 18 and I was anorexic at the time. So I was very, 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 very skinny, like skeleton skinny. And one thing I struggled with, and I still do at times, definitely struggle with, is just not being able to see myself on every single level. I think that's a lot of us work with that, right? And I remember what was so crazy was that I was wandering around the house, really high, and I opened up my parents' bedroom. They were gone, and they had these mirrors. And I walked in, and I suddenly saw myself in the mirror. And the thing about anorexia or eating disorders, and you can be body dysmorphic and not have an eating disorder. And I think most of us are body dysmorphic, meaning we can't see ourselves. As a side note, I remember Oprah did a series where she like brought women in and was like, gave them like their own picture to play with, to show like, okay, tweak it so that it looks the way you think you look. And for all women except one, they were really off on their self-perception. Like everyone made themselves uglier and like, different proportions in their body. Like no one could actually see themselves. And I thought it was funny that back in the day, I actually would have to like drop acid in order to see clearly. Like that's how fragmented and out of my body I was. And I remember looking in this mirror and being in shock and crying, because for that moment, I actually let myself see myself. And I just saw like the bones and the veins, and how I just, every bone was just so visible. And I remember I just kind of laid down in front of the mirror and just ran my hands over my body. And I was saying, I'm so sorry. And that image stayed with me. And the tough thing, and this is just going into an aside with eating disorders and I've had several different kinds. Usually you're not limited to one. Is that it's not like there's this strange, I'm consciously harming myself. I'm also numbed out. I'm also unconscious. I also don't want to be here. And I do want to heal. So there's like all these competing forces inside. And that's what makes it so painful, is that it's like this desire to heal, but really feeling stuck in this prison, and even this terror around healing and stepping into one's life beyond food. So what I notice now, and because the promise I made myself, even though I took many years to really, really heal, is that I didn't want to be someone who, like, to me, healing wasn't like, oh, you're a normal weight and you're not like a weird eater around other people. Like, I just didn't want to be even what most women are, which is just self-shaming on my body and kind of like worrying if I eat something, it's going to make me fat. And I'm American by birth. And so, we are a fat phobic society. And, that definitely was my family. Everyone in my family had an eating disorder of some sort. And what I didn't realize until I started training as an eating disorder therapist was that it wasn't just the story of my family or of my culture, or just, it's the story that for women, we've been heavily indoctrinated for thousands of years. Not only that, like back in the day, like we were maids and servants and basically like making babies and, had no, and this is still true for many women still on this planet. We don't have value unless we're married. Our worth is determined by the man. We are property, right? So there's some heavy stuff we're breaking. And even though, like, my mom's like, you have it so much easier now than what we had, I'm like, yeah, but what? I still get grabbed on the street, like I still have been raped. I still don't feel safe as a woman. I'm still angry about certain things, and let's just keep making it better, right? Let's make it better. And so, the spell that I'm working on is seeing where there's still something, and it's, on a mental level. And for a lot of us, like, we're highly intelligent, so we can know all this stuff on a mental level. But it's not until like it's embodied, it's not until we get into the subtle energetic depths of it that we own it differently, that it lives differently in our system. And so it's still very alive for women around the world, that like our worth is our body shape. Whether, and of course, every 10 years, the ideal body shape keeps changing. And the ideal body shape is basically that which is the most difficult to achieve. So I remember when I lived in West Africa in Niger, it was a lot harder to actually achieve a bigger body because, there was so much starvation. And so, of course, the more ideal body type there would be like someone who's larger. So it's just looking at, where that ideal body type will lie. And of course, it will just be whatever's going to be hardest to achieve, right? Not easy, but difficult. And of course, now we're dealing with like, and to get that, you have to have plastic surgery. So there's a lot of marketing done. And there's some cool, I'm forgetting the name of the series, but talking about how modern psychology went into the marketing techniques, especially in America. And America is known for its marketing skills. Marketing is designed to make you feel like you don't have enough and you're not enough. I mean, I watch myself. I have such an open system that like, it's so fucking easy to sell things to me, right? Like I now have a rule where it's like, do not say yes, Kat. Do a walkabout, think about it, sleep on it. It's really helped me. So, it's like we lose our power by being insecure and thinking that we're not enough. And so what we need to reclaim, no matter, whatever gender we identify with, like whoever we are, all of us, like to be secure within ourselves, to own our inner authority, That's our superpower. But for women, what I'm noticing is that, we still are trying to break the spell of my value, our value is how we look. We got to stay young. We have to be thin. We got to have all the like body type stuff. Like your vagina needs to be a certain way, like all these things, right? And usually it's highly unachievable. It's painful, and it actually might even harm us. Like I know that for me to keep the weight that I thought was ideal, I would have to lose my period. That wasn't even that thin. It's just like, actually, if I drop under a certain weight and I still look healthy on the outside, like not skinny, my period stops. And in a way, it's been a blessing to have a health crisis last year, because it was like, I really have to eat, and I have to eat regularly, and just, like, and focus more on health. And real beauty is real health. And our real beauty is our energy body, like having that inner sparkle and radiance. I mean, I don't know, I think it's also, there's a certain gradient for women. Some people are really captured and caught by these stupid beauty standards, where like to the point where we're, mutilating ourselves, whether it's to the extremity of plastic surgery, and not knocking, if you've had it, because I know sometimes we do need to have plastic surgery. You've had a major accident, something happened when you were giving birth. So I'm not knocking plastic surgery, but the kind where it's like, you're doing it because you don't think you're enough, and that's not an act of self-love. You're doing it for the other and not for you. And the challenge is that for women, we've been primed into our worth is the other. Our worth isn't unless we're with that man. And so as much as we're aware, like modern day, that may not be true, it still lives in our system. It lives still in our DNA. It's still in our memory. And so it still is going to affect us and control us in some way. So it's a spell to break of like, I can be enough, and not have to have my body be a certain way. And for some people, it's like most women are stuck in diet culture, and are shaming themselves and are always on that eternal, like 5 pounds. Maybe it gets more extreme where, we're starting to destroy ourselves through eating disorders. But, I haven't met many women confident in their bodies. I think about my body is shapeshifted into so many different sizes and shapes. And still, it was never right. It was never enough, because that was never the problem. That was never the issue. So I have to catch myself, because when I'm stressed out and overtired, there can still be that little like thing in my brain that I can catch it. That is like, oh, like we can fix this if we just like did this little exercise, or like just found this little diet, or let's do a detox. And I can kind of smirk at it and be like, we know that doesn't work. But it still can live in our system. And, I follow, I'm very careful about who I follow on Instagram, because, I think we all agree, like when you go on Instagram and Facebook, it's like, if you want to get depressed really quickly, go on social media. So how can we use this as a tool to empower one another, right? And not be depressed, but lift one another up. So it's been wonderful to really like unfollow and to really refine my feed, so that it's like, yeah, that was cool. I want to share that with other people. Like, yeah, that inspires me. That taught me something. That makes me feel good. I don't feel less than, it makes me want to boost others up as well. So, but one thing I've noticed is I've been following quite a bit of women who are kind of like the anti, whatever current body type. And it's like, it's suddenly like a trend to be like, and here's my belly roll, and like, check out the cellulite. And while that's all great, we're still hooked into my values, my body. And so what I'm questioning and offering in my own personal work with myself, and as I'm, continuing to work more with women around our body image and our value, and really like rocking out from our deepest power and just being ourselves. And for those of us who might still struggle with eating disorders, like let's heal that. Can we start to not direct our entire focus that our worth is our looks and our worth is our body? And it's going to be a tough one because it's been indoctrinated in us for a very long time. So it's living in our system and it's still being acted out by most people. And it's still being supported by all marketing and media. And so, part of the change comes from parenting. I think about my little sister and I love how conscious. I mean, I don't get to see her parent much, but from what I've seen, like she's really conscious about how her children identify their worth and very conscious on, not doing the typical, like how you might talk to a girl about being good, nice, and pretty. And and I'm seeing it among my friends as well. So the change starts with parenting. The change, of course, starts with education and how we're, in schools. But of course, like for the rest of us, if you're, it's still living in your body. So can we start to suggest a new possibility? Because in any sort of rewiring of any pattern, and when I do trauma work with people, part of it is getting them out of the loop of like, this is the only possibility. This is the only way that my life can go. This is how it is, and so we keep, no matter where we move or place ourselves, it's like the same pattern keeps recreating itself. And so, the way that we start to create a breakthrough is, do you know that there's another possibility? And it might feel uncomfortable and unfamiliar, but it's also like expanding your system. And of course we got to do it without going into any sort of shutdown, but like, hey, did you know that actually your entire value has nothing to do with the size and shape of your body or what you look like? And it's taking our eyes that have been clouded for so long, and these little like demons and beetles and devils that are living in our brain and speaking in our ear saying like, this is how it is, this is our worth. It's starting to see like, wait a minute, can I feel what my vibration feels like? Like, wait a minute, what did I come here for? Like when you fly out of your body, when you die, it's not going to be like, check out my ass or like, check out my breasts or like, I'm so glad I kept those 10 pounds off or like, wow, that last Botox did something. It's going to be like, I felt loved. For me, it's going to be like, I finally wrote a fucking book. I sang. I enjoyed myself. I got cracked open by this wildlife. And what's helpful for me to reference back to is the great love connections that I've had and the ways that I felt touched by life and in love with life. They actually never happened during my eating disorder. And even when I wasn't in eating disorder, but was still like dieting, that was the tough thing for me as a yoga teacher, was that I felt pressured, especially because I was so seen, in media, of like, I need to look like a yoga teacher, whatever the fuck that means, right? Like a white girl yoga teacher, right? And so like, I gotta be vegan and green juice. Let's detox. And it just like put me in this little box that didn't let me live the wild, free, big way that I want to live. And I was terrified of getting big, and like the thing is that when we expand ourselves, there's so many ways to be a human. It's like, it's not going to stop. It's not like, oh, I figured it out and now I got 30 more years. It's like, we're going to continually be surprised. That's the pleasure of it. And we're going to get our hearts broken so many different ways. And we're also going to love in so many new ways. We're going to love in so many new ways. And I know that when I've really attracted, like, okay, if I'm going to be real, like the best orgasms of my life, like where it was just epic, I was probably at my bigger sizes because I'd let go, and was just letting myself be myself. And I wasn't monitoring myself, and I wasn't like on restrictive modes. It turned into binging modes. It was just like, just let myself fucking be. I bought clothes that were comfortable. And there was this radiance and this joy, and I felt good. I slept well, so that's the real question I have for myself, but for you too, is, Will you let yourself live like really as you are? Because when we go towards like, I need to change my body or my eating patterns, it's kind of like, how can I restrict my life force? And I'm asking you, especially right now, like, how big can you get? I'm not talking like go get like a big size, like whatever size. There's so many ways to be a human. Like I love having taught tens of thousands of people because I've seen so many different bodies, and there's just so many different ways to be a human. And they're all, it's not like there's a wrong body or like a good body or a bad body, right? Like we want to be healthy, we want to feel good. But like it's not about like I look pretty for you or I look sexy for you. Like fuck that. So that's my super challenge to you is let yourself say fuck that when those little voices come in, and can you really hold space for yourself to show up as you? And I hope you have a very wonderful day. And also, I just want to do a little shout out. I know it's probably showing up backwards. It says breathe on it. This is a trial hat by Kita Komodo. If you don't know her yet, you should. She does some amazing music. You can find her on Spotify. But also she's got some clothing coming out and some jewelry coming out soon. So keep an eye out. I'll see you soon.